You're welcome back. Well, at a time when the world, Nigeria included, is working on recovering from the pandemic, increased productivity, which will ensure the optimization of resources, human and otherwise, comes to the front burner. Author of MindShift and a thought miner, Mr. Omololu Ogumade, shares some insights on how workforce productivity can be improved on. And he joins us here in the studio. Good to speak with you, Mr. Omololu. Good morning.
Morning, Nini. How are you today?
I'm fine. I'm good. And you?
Good. It's a pleasure to be here.
Good. So how intentional are both employers and employees on this issue of optimizing workforce? Or do we just go to work, because we are paid to work, we just go and do what we are told to do, and employers say, okay, you do this and I do this?
And well, you cannot put a generalization over it, because the reality is when you go from organization to organization, you find their realities the way they work. But the ideal is that there should be templates set for the employee to know what is expected by the employer in any particular organization. But as we engage with businesses, you'll find out that there's always like a gap, So it goes back to our discussions on MindShift in terms of how we think both from the perspective of the employee and the employer, so we can then start to break it down, because those are the things that eventually impact on productivity in any particular organization that you are looking at in that
So
context.
this is different from what you receive on your letter, when you are employed.
Exactly.
You are given responsibility. Exactly. So at what point does the employer communicate, this to the employee?
Yeah, you see, what I've also, come to see is that when the typical employee gets the employment letter, the engagement notice, the focus is on the pay package. You understand? Because, our economic realities make it such that everybody is looking at how do I go out in the morning and come back home with enough to live and then to take care of those who depend on me. So once the interview session is over and you're getting the letter, what you're looking at is, okay, so what did they eventually offer? And that takes away from mindfulness, which is one of the things that I train on. Mindfulness is a principle that gets you in the moment, both emotionally, intellectually, with what you engage with at every moment, like what we're doing now. We have to be mindful about what we're doing now to get the best out of this. So once mindfulness is taken out of that whole transaction and it's just about naira and kobo, you find out that there is no placement, there is no situation of myself in what my employer necessarily expects of me. I'm just waking up, going to that office, knowing that in 26 days I'm going to get X amount. So it's not so much about what I deliver now, but what I get out of it. And once the employer is unable to communicate to that employee that there are other things to be considered, there's going to be a lacuna in the area of productivity. And that is a reality that we face across board here in Nigeria and probably, around the world too.
So where is the place of passion? Because, I mean, it's common knowledge that if you love what you do, then you're not just doing it to get paid.
Exactly.
You're doing it because you want to make impact, you want to add value, you want to also derive joy from it. Where is that?
The problem we have is nobody is really, well, let me not say nobody, but the percentage of people that are getting employed based on passion, based on what I love to do, if you compare it to those who are not, they are in the minority. Because of the, in quotes, scarcity of job placements in an economy where we have over 30% unemployment rate. So the average person out there who's looking for a job is just looking for a job. Is basically just looking for a paycheck. So that's why you go into industry, you find a Yoruba graduate working in a bank, and he's a teller. So it's not as if he's even working in a department where that background of having studied Yoruba becomes useful. But he's just on the counter collecting cash and delivering cash to people who come to make a withdrawal. So it's so much less about passion in industry now as it is about getting paid, just surviving in this, in quotes, harsh environment. So what you discover is, for some, as they get into that organization and get more integrated into the business of that organization, probably see an aspect of that business that they really like. So they start to train themselves to get passionate about that. So very few people you will find in our environment now who are doing what they do based on passion.
Yeah, because I was going to ask you, is there a way, for instance, an individual gets a job out of necessity? Is there a way to get, I mean, because for you to optimally get, you know, the workforce or the benefit that you should get from a personnel or a workforce or human resources, you have to get the person's mind engaged.
Yeah.
Is there a way to get people, even though it's not their primary area of passion, to get them to be mindful and committed, you know, to that?
Yes, there is. And that is where the HR departments, the training departments come to play. Because, okay, for example, using myself, you know, as an example, I'm a graduate of the sciences. But by the time I was graduating, I had two thought directions. I was either going to be a researcher based on science, or I was going to go and do something else. So the first job offer I got was to be a sales rep, you know. So I took it because I didn't want to stay at home. But I discovered from going out to sell that I actually, you know, enjoyed the engagement with people. And, you know, I haven't grown up as an extrovert anyway. So it was easy for me to get into the mindset of a salesman. And I just loved it. And that's what I've done all my life until now, that even though I'm still a salesman now, but I'm selling, you know, concepts now.
So, but was that done for you, or was it something you did for yourself?
No,
what
it wasn't done for me, really.
Yeah, so it's not about training or coaching.
Exactly.
It's about you finding a reason to love.
Yes, well, there was this synergy of sorts, in the sense that, having become a sales rep, the company I was with did some training for us in sales and marketing. So in those training sessions, I discovered, okay, so this is why I'm like this. Okay, this is why I like to do this. This is why I like to speak like this. So there is, you know, there was some synergy. So that's why I said the HR and training departments of organizations need to be more on the job in that regard. And, you know, we talk about assessment right at the interview level. There should be an HR presence of course, in the interview committee. And such a person should be trained to, by just observing this person that's being interviewed, to start penning down possibilities within the realities of that organization and this individual that we're interviewing. Like, for example, the last paid employment my wife was involved with, when she was being interviewed, she was interviewed as an HR director. But right there in the interview, they made her understand that they were planning to bring her in because the person that was occupying the seat they were grooming her for was going to be seconded to corporate communications, which was really a core. But she was handling HR pending they are getting a proper HR person. You know, so that's a company that had a plan. But when you're just staffing for the purpose of, you know, filling the seats and tables without, you know, being specific about what this business will require going forward, that is where the problems usually come. So you find out that in such organizations, productivity is low because things were not done strategically ab initio.
So what about the issue of motivation? Where does it come into, you know, increasing productivity?
Well, motivation really, you know, it's wide.
Exactly.
So, you know,
it's not just about the salary.
Exactly. That's what I'm going to, you know, self-motivation, motivation in terms of the environment you create for the workers, motivation in terms of communication within the system, across the ranks. So all of those things end up impacting on staff motivation. Is this an environment where the people that come to work can really, really work in terms of producing at their optimum and enjoying being in that environment? Or are they coming because they know, well, I need this salary? So all of that is managerial now. Management has to create an environment that motivates, an environment that people wake up in the morning and they are glad to go to, an environment that they are looking forward to be in for 8, 10 hours, 12 hours of a day, depending on the kind of job they're doing. So that is from management and ownership. But then the other side of it is the individual who understands that, okay, now I have a responsibility to this organization and I must stay, in quote, motivated to be able to deliver at my utmost best. So it goes both ways, but the individual side will be more encouraged by what the organization has already put in place. So that's why I remember I was privileged to train a company last month, last week of September. I trained over 30 staff in that organization, a fintech, in 2 days. We had 2 batches. And I could sense a sense of excitement about the office itself, the premises, the job. But there was also a big sense of demotivation in terms of the communication across the ranks. So when we had our interactive sessions, there was a lot of feedback saying that they found it difficult to go, up the chain. Their line managers, communicating with the line managers.
Isn't that more like a culture thing in Nigeria?
Exactly, which was why the training we did was on culture and vision. So it was just, apt for them because I trained them on organizational culture and vision. So it was a cultural thing, which is why the HR person chose that training module as the first to start with, because they needed to readdress the cultural setting in that organization.
But such trainings, I mean, a lot of times they're interesting, you're excited about it. But when it comes to the implementation, it takes is a whole lot.
Yes.
Implementing it, especially when you have to go from the top and all that, is a whole lot. So do we really see the fruit of this training, or do we just get excited about the training?
The truth of it is, it now depends on the organization at management level. Because if you have paid a consultant to perform a training, to carry out a training, what was the purpose of it in the first place? Are you doing it because you just want to have training budget? Are you doing it because there is a need that you are ready to attack and then to address within the organization? So we're still, we've gone beyond the training, but there's still feedback between myself and the management, trying to make sure that the steps that need to be taken thereafter are put in place.
Now, when we talk about goal setting and assessment, I mean, professionally or normally, should it be at the beginning of a year, there's a goal? I mean, that's the HR's duty. The HR has a lot to do, actually. Yeah. And then assess it at the end without sentiments. That's also another
There's always office politics and all of that. But, when we talk about goal setting, targets, we go into definitions now. Because from experience, we have discovered that a lot of times we use these terminologies, but we don't know the meaning of those terminologies. So when you talk about goals, and, in most places, I ask a question, who can define a goal? You find that people are defining targets. So what is a goal? A goal is something that challenges you to become better. But if I were to ask, what is a goal? Somebody will say, okay, we want to build our company into $1 million business in the next 6 months. That's not a goal, that's a target.
That's a target.
So a goal comes to you to make you better. A target is what you achieve as you hit your goal. So those are, like you said, HR and training.
Yeah, so the HR needs a lot of training also before.
Exactly. So we have training for management and senior staff, then training for cadre.
Yes. All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Molulu Ogumade, author, MindShift, and a thought miner. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us this morning.
Thank you, always a pleasure.
Yeah, good to have you. So, well, I wonder what difference that will make. I do hope that will make a difference in our targets and management of human resources. But for now, we have to switch over to the market and find out how the market fared yesterday. But that will be right after the short break.